Hello, I'm Russell Michaels and welcome to Cinepolitics, where we discuss the social and, of course, the political issues which have inspired all kinds of films and documentaries from all around the world. On today's programme, we're discussing the extraordinary documentary Children of War, photographed and directed by Brian Single. Filmed inside northern Uganda over 3 years, Children of War follows the emotional journey of a group of former child soldiers as they undergo a process of trauma therapy in a rehabilitation centre. From 15 to as young as 5 years old, these children were abducted from their homes and schools and forced to become fighters by the Lord's Resistance Army, a quasi-religious militia led by Joseph Kony, a self-proclaimed prophet, now indicted for war crimes. The children have literally had their childhoods stolen from them. Brutalised, they've been forced to murder their own countrymen and even members of their own families. Children of War documents their struggle to confront and break through years of abuse, guided by a heroic team of counsellors.
Into this centre, we received the Children of War. It has been very difficult to come up with the proper records, but the surveys that were done revealed there were over 35,000 children who got abducted. All of these centers together have received about 25,000 abducted children who have escaped or been rescued from the Lord's Resistance Army since the war began. That means the remaining 10,000 abducted children are still unaccounted for.
Here are the boys, the fighters, going fighters, captured in the battlefield.
Are you happy to be rescued?
Obviously.
You would love to go home and meet your parents?
Yes.
God believes that he has supernatural power from God.
Wana wo kuna rake kwa moya ja katini makaya kena iko kan ishingwa ake wachuani gimo yata mo kare komuno taka lui la rap kare cherba kon poru bino ko no to nerke anje mo ja mewa ilo ni chata ke kor ko je chui mon pe piele peng gui krenyu do no piar bea kare pang nge ke no moel kanang we chui mon ke chire we ke lui la rap e pa.
So what choices will the children make when faced with forgiving their tormentors or taking revenge? And what will be the effect of the International Criminal Court now it has indicted Joseph Kony for war crimes? Well, here to discuss Children of War are my guests, Dr. Edwin Brett, a Uganda expert from the London School of Economics, and Angie Erigo, a regular reviewer for Empire magazine. Very warm welcome to the programme. And start straight away with you, Angie. Almost thankfully, we don't see some of the appalling atrocities that have been committed, but how good is the film and the interviews at conjuring up the images of what these children have actually done?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say I thought, given the harrowing nature of the subject matter, I thought the film was rather beautifully done and quite sensitively done. And rather than having an intrusive voice-over narration or an obvious filmmaker putting himself in front of the camera, the trauma and shock that is clear to see on the haunted faces of these children and the blank expressions and the monotones with which some of them answer the questions tell you volumes about what they've been through. So
the emotional detachment is part of their story in a way.
Indeed, I think so, especially because as the film progresses, we see some of the children emerge from that. But I don't think we need to see we hear a lot of the grisly details, but I don't think it needs to dwell on the background.
One in particular, Edwin, to bring you in here, one in particular is a very young child who describes without much emotion really, of how he was forced to kill a woman with two other boys. Why is this policy forcing children to kill? Why is it enacted in the first place?
I'm sure there are several reasons. I mean, in the first place, the Lord's Resistance Army as a movement that goes back to the 1980s was a reaction to the Ugandan government being taken over by Yoweri Museveni and forcing out the northern government that had dominated politics in Uganda up to that time. So it was a response to what was seen as a defeat, and that produced two kinds of problems. The one was that northern soldiers had been defeated and had to, in a sense, atone for their crimes, and the northerners needed to, in a sense, be purified, and there was a whole sort of religious, millenarian aspect to this particular movement. And
but you're saying purified by killing civilians?
Well, had to be purified, and the Lord's Resistance Army, therefore, in a sense, had a right to go out and punish its own people. The particular case that is talked about here actually happens in the Sudan, which is where the Lord's Resistance Army subsequently went to escape from Uganda, where they were actually being used by the northern Sudanese government to terrorize the local population. And this is another aspect of the same thing. These guerrillas are not just trying to attack the government, they're also trying to make their own people fear them and stay with and accept them and protect them.
Right. Angie, I mean, the results of all this are that the children are traumatized. What kind of psychological damage do the counsellors, who seem saints, have to work to undo?
They obviously have I think one of their missions is to get the children to open up and just talk about their feelings, talk about their experiences,
and guilt, of course,
and confront the kind of guilt that anyone would have, let alone a child who's been through these experiences. And yet they have to do it very gradually. It's a very painstaking, step-by-step process to get the children to open up, and it's only over quite a period of time that they are then able to discuss not only what's been done about it, to them, but how they feel about it.
And gain their trust, of course.
And of course, these children have been feel that they've been betrayed by everyone. You know, their families couldn't protect them, their government couldn't protect them, their church couldn't protect them. So for them to trust any adult in yet another strange new environment that's the first thing, to create an atmosphere of trust. Some of the people working there are former victims themselves, which is very interesting. They're probably the most helpful because they understand completely what the children have gone through.
Well, let's pause there. That's fascinating as well, that it's on both sides. Let's see a clip where we learn how Joseph Kony first impressed his followers, and then we hear from Abonga Papa, the former chief priest of the Lord's Resistance Army.
Terra chiel me wek ye kor bin reda ma kor muano ping penen si dan do meting yo bi a gi ten lok anone ci guwa ci dan chuin gi ba le pe kor me te bien un bet ke ñu mar kor to bu guru ci kor chui kor rumni dan ken le lele be mo al bi gi ko ke chen ke ene mo no fut pe gi geba eu não fui dando bem que é minha donho Keni.
Ampe agora mas tudo tiri, já vai agora. Então niu, dou ni riang ni nama cili unjuk ni ye kumruat. Saya riang ben, ruang ni niu cuma tujuh.
Mungkin aku lui ke mer bien aga, ke riang kau ke makan aku. Ke na jak we ke nebe. Mungkin aku warian nebe, perang war.
No, no.
What? No tiene una cuarta de dominero.
Okay. Gino mo maro mi lutino mo da neho. Lutino wandi.
Gino ne ko, lutino de tiene neho.